Social networking effects on social development in adolescents. Social networking has changed the way people in the 21st century communicate. Sites such as Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, and YouTube allow users to share ideas, activities, events, and interests, as well as to connect with friends. But what about young people growing up exposed to such sites? Never in history have adolescents had access to so much technology and instant communication. Teens and preteens today not only communicate face-to-face, but also now communicate screen-to-screen. By the time American children reach the age of 5, more than 50% regularly interact with a computer or tablet device. While research is still just beginning, it suggests that the internet may be changing how our brains work. Hypertext and multimedia content has been linked in some children to limited attention span, lower comprehension, poor focus, greater risk for depression, and diminished long-term memory. But what about the effects of social networking? First, let's take a look at some of the age restrictions for various social networking sites. Facebook, MySpace, and Twitter are restricted to users under the age of 13. The reason for this is because of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which aims to stop marketers from gaining personal information from children or using their data to advertise to them. Since these sites restrict users 12 and under to join, they have stated that the law does not apply to their sites. Yet Consumer Reports estimated last year that 7.5 million Facebook users are American children. In order to gain access to these sites, kids change their birth year to make themselves older online than they actually are, and many create pages with the help of their parents. Although there is no age restriction to watch videos on YouTube, the site requires users to be at least 13 years of age to create a profile, and some videos require a user to be 18 to view due to the content of the video. The impact of heavy media use on kids' social, emotional, and cognitive development is only beginning to be studied, and most of the effects social media have in children are unknown. Next, we'll take a look at the positive and negative effects of social media in adolescents. A recent study conducted by Larry Rosen, Ph.D., a psychology professor at California State University, found that social networking can act as training wheels for life. By allowing teens to post information and see how others react to it, they can learn as they go. A major benefit of this is that it may help shy teens become more comfortable and outgoing. The study also suggests that Facebook and other sites may be helping them to become more empathetic to others. Dr. Rosen's research shows that the more people engage in Facebook activities, the more virtual empathy they display, and that this may translate into empathy in the real world. But this study also produced some negative effects on adolescents. Research discovered a relationship between heavy Facebook use and narcissism in teens, and another study conducted by Rosen stated that students who frequently checked Facebook during study sessions reported lower grades. About 3/4 of teenagers use social networking sites, and a report from the American Academy of Pediatrics has stated that a great deal of social and psychological development are learned on these sites, and that this can have a real impact on the self-esteem of a teenager, especially if they are at-risk teens who have some sort of tendency towards depression or anxiety. Teens with these high risk factors often turn to social media for intimacy and to feel connected to others. But when they are communicating with unknown strangers, it puts them at increased risk to come into contact with people who may wish to do them harm. Cyberbullying is also a prevalent issue in social networking. It is the deliberate use of digital media to communicate false, embarrassing, or hostile information about or to another person. Even though the effects of cyberbullying are not physical, they can still leave deep emotional scars and in some extreme cases cause a child or teen to deep depression and even suicide. In an interview with Dr. Dan McGee, a pediatrician at Helen DeBoss Children's Hospital, he explains which children are most at risk and how parents can moderate their child's internet use.
Well, I think the children are most at risk are the ones that have other issues to begin with, that they're socially isolated, that they don't interact well with their peers in the beginning. And then if you put them into an isolated environment like your computer up in your bedroom, then you're going to have more problems.
How do you think parents need to coach their kids on dealing with this? Even kids that have some of these emotional concerns, they've obviously come up sooner than when they start going online, so maybe they are more isolated, something like that. How can parents help those kids still enjoy being online and yet not fall into these anxiety situations?
Well, I think the bottom line is everything in moderation, you know, that you just don't carry anything to an extreme. Set guidelines for how long child should be involved in any of the social networking that's going on, and make sure you know where your child is going and are they going to age-appropriate sites.
Right. You know, it's not like the online world really isn't separate from our world, and yet somehow it's sort of treated that way.
Well, I think people of my generation, you know, we separate it more so than tweeners and teens do now, that they think this is a part of their whole life. You know, their fingers are connected to their phone, they're connected to their iPad.
All the time.
And they just, you know, this is just part of how they communicate.
Right. And it's also, it becomes this forum for bullying, and we see that as a problem on and on, you know, over and over again in our schools, and as we continue to see our children in social situations, online bullying, it's hard to monitor.
Right, and I think the key word is to monitor. Make sure you know what your children are doing, and talk to your children and see if they're having any problems. If you start seeing signs that they're becoming more moody, more emotional, or they're becoming more withdrawn, you need to investigate why that's so. One of those possibilities could be their online activity. There's other possibilities as well, but that's one of them.
The American Academy of Pediatrics came out with these guidelines to help children in these situations. Let's talk a little bit about what you talk with your patients about and parents that are concerned about this. What advice do you give them?
Well, again, it goes back to the everything in moderation, that, you know, don't make that your only after-school activity. You know, make sure your child is getting outside, engaging in physical activity, and not spending excessive amounts of time involved in social media or other kind of media.
And see what they're saying on there.
That's right.
On those sites, yeah. Dr. Dan McGee from Helen DeVos Children's Hospital, thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks.
Young people habitually post and share private, personal information and opinions on social networking sites without fully considering the potential consequences. Most young adults already regret things they have posted to the internet. Some say the excessive use of social media sites by adolescents is creating transient relationships that will leave them unable to cope when the sites collapse. Archbishop Vincent Nichols has stated that excessive use of electronic communication leads to the loss of ability to build interpersonal communication skills, and that kids today put too much importance on the quantity of friends they have rather than quality. All in all, social networking has several pros and cons when it comes to social development in adolescence, and it seems to be, as long as social networking is used in moderation and not excessive use, and as long as teens are still engaging in face-to-face communication, that sites like Facebook and Twitter can actually enrich the development of social skills.